I do have one Nintendo Power left, so that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. This is issue 220, October 2007. Obviously, the cover title on this one is Super Mario Galaxy. This would have been probably about a year or so into the Wii lifespan. So here's our cover story. The best games of E3, Wii plus DS. Far Out Mario, says the title there. Countdown to Super Mario Galaxy's Wii Blast-Off, and a few things over there as well. On the back, there's an ad for Carnival Games. Inside the cover, we have an ad for Sonic Rush Adventure. There are so many random Sonic games out there I've never played. When I was a kid and Nintendo and Sonic were bitter rivals, I never thought I'd see Sonic games on a Nintendo system, but that certainly has happened now. Here we got the table of contents, and then on the other side there's an ad for Hubba Bubba Bubble Gum. Do they still make Hubba Bubba? Do they still make any of those brands of bubble gum I had when I was a kid? That's a good question, actually. If anybody knows the answer, please comment down below and let me know. Table of contents continued, and then you have an ad for Brunswick Pro Bowling. I think the only bowling game I ever really played was the Wii Bowling that was in Wii Sports back in the day. Here we have a game index as well as an ad for Heroes of Mana. We get here into the Player's Pulse. This is where, of course, people can submit their letters to the magazine. And I got a letter published in this issue, probably the reason I kept the issue. But my letter talks about the Western film, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and how I believe two of the Pokemon got their name from that game, because there's a Pokemon called Phanpy and Donphan, and like two of the heroes in that movie are named Pompey and Tom Donovan. So it's an interesting coincidence if it's just a coincidence, but it is pretty close, so hard to ignore. And the person who replied at Nintendo Power said, "We're impressed by your powers of observation, though it's probably just a coincidence." And then on this page, we have a continuation of the Player's Pulse and an ad for a game called Dragon Blade Wrath of Fire. Someone made a Metroid Jello mold there. I always love seeing the quirky, weird stuff that people send in this section. Okay, we have our Player's Pulse Most Wanted section on this side, and over here we have an ad for a Digimon game. I never got too super into the Digimon series versus like Pokemon, which is obviously the more popular one, but I did have one of the Digimon virtual pets back in the day. They were kind of like Tamagotchis, but you could actually make them fight with one another, and that was pretty cool. We have our news section here. They got an ad for a Trauma Center game here. I remember we saw one of those in the last issue. They got a Destroy All Humans game, and then something called Viva Pinata. Heard that title, but I don't really know what the game is. And as always, if anybody's watching this video, if you want to comment on anything, ask any questions, go ahead and do so. I'm just going to be going from cover to cover as usual, but feel free to chime in at any time. Just keep it appropriate. We got an ad here about Dragon Quest remakes with a picture of the slime monster, a few other games. They got some ads for video game toys, including Street Fighter and Final Fantasy. And what is this ad over here? This is Full Sail Real World Education School of Game Development. One of the top 5 game degree programs in the world, according to Electronic Gaming Monthly. I don't know if EGM's still around or not either. Nintendo Power was discontinued around 2012. And they got an ad here, like a preview for the game Bully, which had been on other consoles, as well as a Game Watch forecast. They kind of had to stop being specific with dates when they did these because, of course, games get delayed and things change all the time. Like, I think Zelda Ocarina of Time was originally slated for, like, spring of 97, but it didn't come out till October of 98. And by then, obviously, the title had changed to Ocarina of Time. It was originally just listed as Zelda 64. And here we get the previews. There's Mario Party DS as well as Mega Man ZX Advent. I haven't really played any Mega Man games outside of the original series, the X series, and to a lesser extent the Legend series, but I know they have a lot of other little sub-series. A few other things here. They got a Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles preview. Looks like a Harvest Moon puzzle game. A few other things here. There's some Bleach games. Not really familiar with Bleach. I know that's a pretty big, anime manga franchise. Something I might have to look into at some point. Here they got an ad for a Phoenix Wright attorney game, as well as an NBA game. I don't. Here they got an ad for something called Front Mission for the DS. And I guess that's a pretty big franchise, bigger in Japan than America, but again, something else I'll probably have to look into after this video. Got ads here for, something called the River King. There's a Spyro game here. There's an Indy 500 racing game. And there's a Williams Pinball Hall of Fame collection game as well. I certainly love pinball. Out here in Las Vegas, we have a place called the Pinball Hall of Fame that has a lot of new and vintage machines. I haven't been there in a while. I definitely need to check that out again at some point. I know, Eddie Trunk, the hard rock and heavy metal media personality, he likes to go there all the time when he's in town. Although I've never actually ran into him in there. Here we got a Crash Bandicoot game as well as Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and then something called Luminous Arc released by the company Atlas. Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was always my all-time favorite Dragon Ball game. I mean, you got almost 200 playable characters in that. And they just put out a new Tenkaichi game finally, Sparking Zero, but unfortunately, no Nintendo Switch release for some strange reason. I mean, I want to get my hands on that, but obviously I have to own the actual system. And here we get into the cover story, which is, of course, talking about Super Mario Galaxy, one of the big flagship titles on the Wii. Every time there's Mario, it's always a big deal. I mean, this issue is sold now that we're actually getting Mario Galaxy in that 3D All-Stars archival collection. So, crazy how long and how far things have come. And here's some artistry for Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. I mean, supposedly they've been working on a Metroid Prime 4 for years. I don't know if that's ever actually going to come out. I really hope it does, though, because I do like the Metroid games. The Metroid Prime games were especially good. Well, all except for that horrible one that was on the DS, but I think we can forgive that. More Metroid Prime 3 art. Here we have something called Battalion Wars 2. I don't know if this is connected to the Advance Wars franchise or not. This is not something I played, although the Advance Wars games I did play on the DS back in the day. Or actually, was it the DS or the GBA? One of those I played. I know they've been on both. And they have some funny, humorous headlines here with song titles. I want to be under the sea. This land is my land. Feel it coming in the air tonight. War. What is it good for? And here there's a DS game starring Daffy Duck. Some more of the Daffy Duck stuff here. Here's an ad for one of the Brain Age game. They had these brain growth intelligence tester games back in the day. I know they had Brain Age and they also had Big Brain Academy. I never actually owned any of these, but I remember Nintendo Power said in a fan letter once that they never actually reviewed these because they didn't really consider them games. They considered them more just brain testers. Here's a few more things, plus a Rune Factory ad. It says here it's a fantasy Harvest Moon, so I guess that's Harvest Moon, but set in medieval fantasy settings. Here's an interview with Toru Iwatani, creator of Pac-Man. Interesting trivia. In Japan, Pac-Man's original name was Puck-Man. But they changed the name to Pac-Man for America because if they put Puck-Man on the side of the arcade machines. Hey there, buddy. How are you doing? Hey, Chris. How are you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Doing all right. But yeah, they actually changed Puck-Man's name to Pac-Man for America because American gamers could have gone and scratched part of the P off and turned the P into a different letter. I'm not going to go into what that would spell because that wouldn't be appropriate for my channel. You feeling better? Yeah, a little bit. Still under the weather. Every time there's a change in the weather, I always feel not so great. They got a Pac-Man timeline down at the bottom showing everything from like the old Pac-Man cartoon to the Pac-Man 2, the New Adventures game, which I think most people have probably forgotten at this point. Yeah, Sonic Rush Adventure, more Sonic the Hedgehog stuff. I saw your review of the Western with Trace Adkins. Oh yeah, Hickok. Yes, I did do a review for Hickok. I believe that went up on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, here's a look at this Sonic Rush Advance game. Sonic Rush Adventure, pardon me. And yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog mania is in full swing because, of course, we got a Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie coming out at the end of the year. And we just got the Knuckles animated series as well. How was the movie? Which movie are you referring to? I cover a lot of movies. Here we get one of those Ocarina ads that Nintendo Power seemed to really heavily push. More Sonic stuff on this page. And here we get to the Players Poll Contest. Most recent one, Trace Adkins. Oh, Hickok. Yeah, that's a decent movie. It's not a great one. If you want to go watch the video, it is up. But yeah, again, decent film. I got that because it was on clearance at Big Lots. Yeah, Naruto here, of course. I've never watched Naruto, but I know that this character in this franchise started in Shonen Jump, and that was the same Japanese comics anthology that Dragon Ball started in, as well as One Piece and a bunch of other ones. So here's a close-up of the contest info. When Future US took over as the publisher, they kept the contest, but they didn't provide an entry for it, and you had to send in a postcard instead, which I thought was kind of lame. Here we get into this Wii channels section. They're talking about games that were on the Wii Virtual Console that you could buy. We got things like Shining Force for the Genesis, Kirby's Dream Course on the SNES, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 from the Genesis. Best of Show. Here's a look at some of the games that were apparently big hits at E3 2007. E3 is the Electronic Entertainment Expo. That's where like a lot of the electronic media is shown off. It's almost pretty much a gamers trade show, but I think they do other stuff too as well. I've never actually attended. Yeah, Mario Kart Wii, and then you got Resident Evil, The Umbrella Chronicles, Super Mario Galaxy, and Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass. I believe that's the one for the DS. And then Knight's Journey of Dreams. They had that game Knight's Into Dreams that was on the Sega Saturn back in the day. Going to any shows tonight? Probably not. I mean, there's always concerts going on out here in Vegas. I did go out last night to the Beat King Crimson tribute with Steve Vai and Danny Carey, the drummer from Tool, plus two guys that were in King Crimson. And that was a pretty cool show, but this might be a staying-in night. I got a screening tomorrow morning of The Brutalist, so I probably need to get my rest for that because it's like a 3.5-hour movie. They have a virtual console edition of classified information, which is where they always like to share the cheat codes and things. They got like some, excuse me. Let me get a drink real quick. Hi there. Hello back. So anyway, yeah, they got some classified information codes here for They have the continue code for the original Super Mario Brothers. They got passwords for Punch-Out, speed up and move disables for Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Gradius, Ghouls and Ghosts, Donkey Kong Country, and Super Castlevania 4, another one of my favorites. They got that Castlevania Nocturne series on Netflix now. I really need to watch that at some point. Are you reading the Nintendo magazine today? Yeah, you actually came in right in the middle of my stream. And if you missed any of this, it will go up on my channel, so you certainly can sit down and take the time to watch what you missed. Here we have a power profile section for Keiji Inafune. He's the guy credited with creating and developing Mega Man. If you ever played the Mega Man games and you play the old, watch the credits, there's a credit for someone named Inaf King, and that's him. So there's a look at him. I know they did a few of these spotlight features. I know they did one at one point for Koji Kondo, the guy that did the music for most of Shigeru Miyamoto's games. I remember he talked about how Deep Purple and Emerson, Lake and Palmer were two of his favorite bands and really influenced the Mario music, so that's kind of interesting. And actually, here's a close-up of the bottom of the page. You can see some of his creations. There's something from Street Fighter 1 there, and then, the original Mega Man, and then over there they got the DuckTales game. Because back in the days of the NES, it was actually Capcom that made all the Disney games, and even for people that weren't Disney fans, these were actually really good platformers, DuckTales probably being the best of the bunch. Here's a continuation of the interview. They got more of his stuff pictured down at the bottom of the screen. And then they also got stuff like Onimusha, Shadow of Rome, Dead Rising. And then there's a scan of a signed photo that he did right there. What does he say in this little box here? We are known as a hardcore gamers gaming company. We may not be making games like that just because everybody else is. We can't let everybody else decide what we're going to make. Yeah, Super Smash Brothers Brawl. They got this Wii Smash Files section. Right here, it's a picture of Yoshi, one of Nintendo's most beloved characters. He, of course, first appearing in Super Mario World, one of the launch games on the SNES. And we got the fold-open poster here. On this side, we've got Geometry Wars Galaxies. That's actually a pretty cool looking poster. I don't know that I've ever played Geometry Wars, but that's something I might believe. On this side, you got a Looney Tunes game, and that looks pretty cool, too. The interesting trivia, the random big red guy that shows up in a lot of the Looney Tunes, his name is Gossamer, but they almost never actually say his name. Who else is pictured here? We got, Taz, Wile E. Coyote, Bugs, Daffy, Shimmy Sam, Roadrunner, Marvin the Martian, Porky Pig, Tweety, Sylvester. So yeah, it's a pretty cool lineup of the Looney Tunes there, although I really think they needed to throw in Foghorn Leghorn for good measure. And they do have back issues and player's guides spotlight here. So here you have a look at some of the then most recent issues of the magazine, as well as some of the player's guides. These days, player's guides aren't really as in demand as they once were, because you can just go online and read an FAQ or a walkthrough. And then, up there you got more of the ads for everything. They do this, playback section, which is flashbacks and stuff. Here they got to look at, Legend of the Mystical Ninja, or Goemon, as they called that in Japan. And then they got some other, games with comic relief here. Like River City Ransom, they mentioned, Paper Mario, and something called iNinja. I don't know iNinja. Yeah, reviews. Here's the beginning of the review section. Got a picture of, I believe that's Metroid Prime 3 there. Yes, it is. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption got a perfect 10 out of 10 score. And then there's also reviews for the NFL Madden games. And of course, John Madden just died not too long ago, but they're still putting out the Madden games despite that. So I guess when it comes to football games, that pretty much has the biggest brand name recognition. On this page, we got a few other things. They got a Mega Man Star Force game, Carnival games. They got a Dave Mirra BMX game. My brother actually has done a lot of work for a BMX bike company, and he rode a bike and filmed his friends on bikes back in the day. I think he actually got a letter that was in one of the Dave Mirra player's guides. Unfortunately, I don't think I have that, but I'll look at some of that stuff. Here we have the archive of reviews and scores. They got a few blurbs here, just little brief reviews, one's for Diddy Kong Racing DX. Yeah, community. They got some like fandom for Earthbound here, a game that bombed when it was released in America originally, but became a cult classic later on. Sadly, the sequel Mother 3 never got a proper American release, although there've been a lot of like fan patches and stuff made. And then some Pokemon here with special evolutions and tracking rare Pokemon. They always have a thing with like funny screenshots where they want you to write in with a caption. Here they got some people cosplaying at a convention. Got some cool artwork from people. Some of the Miis that people made on the Wii. Next month they got their preview here, and then over there they got contact information, info on the ESRB ratings, and then something about a warranty for the Wii. And this set of ESRB ratings, these appear to be current because they've got the E10 and up, and then, of course, E for everyone. Prior to probably like the early mid-2000s, the E rating was called KA, Kids to Adults. And then they added an E10 and up rating for the ones that weren't quite, I guess, harsh enough to be teen rated. Here we have our subscription info, and in this case, they're trying to use Pokemon players' guides as incentives to join the magazine. They got guides for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. They got the Pokedex guide for Diamond and Pearl, because they always put out 2 players' guides for each game. One's like the proper game, and then the other thing is post-game content and Pokedex stuff. And here's the registration form right there. Okay, and that does it for this issue. This is actually my last Nintendo Power that I have, so I might see if I can hunt down some more of them at used game shops or maybe some other old game mags if I can get my hands on them. I mean, I've actually got a few other non-Nintendo Power magazines here. Like, I've actually got... when I worked at Tower Records, I got a few issues of the Star Wars Insider, so I think next week for the live stream, I'm going to read this. And this will be interesting because this is Star Wars back before Disney acquired Lucasfilm, back when a lot of the expanded universe stuff was still considered, at least loosely canon. I don't think George Lucas ever officially recognized it, but so this is going to be what I read for next week's live stream. And before I end the stream, are there any parting shots, anything else somebody wants to say or comment on? We actually got through that Nintendo Power a little faster than I expected we would have. Okay, if there's no further feedback, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream now. I want to thank everyone that tuned in and shared their support, and hopefully I'll see you for the stream next weekend where we read the Star Wars Insider.